When you follow an eating system, you're more in your head, you're less likely to be connected to what's going on down here, to your hunger and your fullness and your intuition and the body's guidance. But it gets even worse when you start restricting your caloric intake. If you have been trying to eat healthy, which is really low calorie eating, if you have been trying to lose some weight, if you are eating with an eye to weight management, so you're monitoring your food and maybe undercutting it here and there, then there is a whole nother thing that's going to be going on with your food. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, when you don't have needs met, certain needs met, you're going to go through some predictable consequences. Let's think about some needs that you might have that you need to have met on a daily basis in order to stay alive, basically. Can you think of any right off? What do you need to make sure that you have every day to stay alive? Air, food, water, sleep, shelter. Let's take a look and see what happens when our needs are not met, because we're going to have predictable consequences for each of these needs. When they're not met, the exact same thing is going to happen. Let's think back to a time where you pulled an all-nighter. Maybe you had an exam the next day, or maybe you had a fun outing and you stayed out all night. What was the next day like? Think about what was going on the day after you stayed out all night. What were you thinking about that day? Were you thinking about sleep? Were you thinking about, I wish I could lay down? Okay, was your mind kept going to sleep because you were tired? Did you find it hard to concentrate? Find it hard to concentrate on what was going on around you? And maybe even felt a little bit irritable and just irritable and impatient because you were so tired. What were you craving? What were you craving? Some of you might say food, because sometimes people kind of put sleep and food together in their minds so that when they're tired, they want to eat. Once you clean that up, they're completely separate, and your body absolutely and your mind knows when you're tired, you need to sleep. When you're hungry, you need to eat. But sometimes they're overcoupled like this. But usually when a person hasn't slept, they crave sleep. They want to go to bed. They want to sleep. So they're preoccupied with getting some sleep. And here's the caveat about these needs. When the need is finally met, more than a normal amount is going to be needed to satisfy. Now think about it. You're going along and you're getting your 8 hours of sleep a night, okay? And then you undersleep by 4 hours. Let's just say you only get 4 hours of sleep that night. So you're craving sleep, you're thinking about it, you're preoccupied with it, you might be a little bit irritable. And then let's just say it happens one more night that you can't get to sleep, and you have even less sleep. Those symptoms intensify. They get worse, don't they? So then let's just say it's time for you finally get to go to bed, right? You get to go to bed and you just sleep your 8 hours and you're fine. No. You probably sleep 12 hours the next night, right? 12 hours. Do you beat yourself up for sleeping 12 hours? Do you say, I should have slept only 8 hours. I should set the alarm clock and get up after 8 hours. That's bad, really, really bad of me. I hope not, because most of you are going to say, well, no, I know that I underslept and I'm really tired, so I'm going to sleep more. And so you might sleep 12 hours one night, and then 10 hours the next night, and then you go back to baseline, don't you? No worries. You go right back to baseline. The body seeks homeostasis. In getting its needs met, it wants its needs met. The body wants to have the needs met. It seeks homeostasis. And when you get to homeostasis, you have a sense of peace. You're no longer craving sleep. You're no longer preoccupied with it. All those things. You're feeling great. Okay, hopefully. Now let's take a look at another one. Warmth. How many of you have been really, really, really cold? Okay. I have an example. I go mountain biking about an hour from here. And in the winter, I would take my little dachshunds with me because it was cool enough for them to stay in the car. And when I got there was a field they could play and stuff. And then they would wait in the car while I rode, and then they would play in the field. And I ride in the winter. It's Florida, so it's not so bad. But I ride in the winter in shorts and a short sleeve shirt. It's just what I do. But I am like a popsicle when I'm done. I am like a popsicle when I get back to the car. I am like frozen. And so I load the dogs up and off we go for our hour drive home. And I have seriously got to crank that heat up. I've got to crank the heat up like a lot. Like, like it's hot. It is hot in my car because I'm trying to thaw out, right? And my poor dogs, they're in the car and they're like, they're breathing heavy. They're trying, you know. So I would roll down the window a little bit. I would roll down the window and then they would get their air and then they would like, you know, breathe, and then I would freeze again and I would roll the window up. And so the whole way home we were trying to modulate the temperature in the car so we were all happy. But it would take an hour for me to thaw out. And you've experienced this, right? So when you get overly cold, you just don't walk into a room and sit down, a 74-degree room, and go, oh, I'm fine. You need overage. You need overage. So you're going to probably leave your gear on. You're going to go into that room and you're going to leave all your stuff on, right? And you're going to be cold for a while, right? But you're not worried, are you? Because you know your body is going to reach equilibrium. It's just going to take a little while. So you wait, and finally, your temperature regulates. You're no longer a popsicle, and then you're back to your regular clothes, and you don't have to be wearing all the gear. You know this. Equilibrium, homeostasis. The body evens out. You meet your needs, and then the body's like excited. It's happy. Now it can just settle in and move on. Air. Let's look at air. Actually, while we do air, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a little something. I want you to either, if you have a straw in your house, I'd like you to hit pause and go get the straw. If you don't have a straw, I'd like you to breathe out of one side of your nose, the same side. Just pick one side. Keep your mouth shut. Okay, keep doing that. Keep doing that. If you have a straw, okay, you keep doing it. I want you guys to keep doing that. I'm going to move on. I want you to do this, and I want you to feel what's happening inside. Just keep an eye on what's happening inside, because I'm going to move on to water while you guys are dealing with air. Okay, making sure that you get enough air through your straw. Now, with water, if you get dehydrated, you went for a walk in the heat, you're at the beach, you're at the gym, or whatever, and you've been exercising, what do? You grab the water and you glug, right? You just glug, 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 right? It's that overage thing. You were a little under because you were dehydrated, and now there's a little overage, and you know your body's going to balance it all out, right? You don't worry about it. You're like, oh, I've drunk too much water. I don't know if my kidneys are going to be able to handle it and get me back to homeostasis. You don't even think about it, do you? And nobody's going, ah, you really should drink like a lady. Like, you need to sip that water. You need to like monitor your water. You shouldn't be gulping that water. Like, no, nobody's saying that. If they did, you'd be like, you're crazy. I know my body goes back to homeostasis, right? You guys are still doing this, right? I just want to check. You're still doing that? Make sure you're still doing that. Okay. So with the water, we're gonna be thirsty, which is a craving for fluids. We're going to find it hard to concentrate on other things when our mouth is all dry. We have a craving for and preoccupation with that. And then when we finally get it, more than a normal enough is needed. You guys are still holding your breath, or you're one nose breathing, right? Okay. Okay. So now I want you to pay attention when you stop it in just a second. I want you to pay attention to what happens. Okay. Okay. Breathe normal. How many of you took that extra breath? Like take a kind of an extra big breath, right? You had actually, by breathing through the straw or whatever, created an underage of air, a slight underage of air to your system. And when you finally gave it what it needed, it took a little bit extra. And I bet you guys are already in homeostasis right now. Moved on. Okay. And you know where this is going, don't you? It's going straight to the food. It's going straight to the food. Because when you undereat, when you are going down the line, you're going to have certain symptoms. They're predictable, just like with the warmth, just like with the water. What are they? You're always thinking about food. Most people think that when they're thinking about food, they're being emotional, that it's a problem, that somehow things are bad. But simply not getting enough air makes you think about air. Simply not getting enough water makes you think about water. So what about just simply not getting enough food makes you think about food? Okay, and it can make you think a lot about food. It could actually even make it hard to concentrate on other things at times because your mind keeps being hijacked, right? It's being hijacked. This can look different ways too. Of course, it could actually look like the opposite of it, because you'll be like, oh, I need to figure out what I'm going to have for dinner. So you're on the internet going through recipes, trying to plan dinner. Well, guess what? That is actually a preoccupation with food. Now, of course, you could be just looking for a recipe. Yeah, sometimes the thing is just exactly what it is. But it can also be this thinking about food could be like on your MyFitnessPal, counting up calories once again to try to make sure that you don't eat. But the reason you keep returning to this whole thought and thinking about food is because you're actually your needs have not been met. Okay. So powerful craving, the craving is uncomfortable. This is a weird one, okay, because hunger cross-culturally is one of the most universally feared experiences. And yet women do it every day, over and over again. And not only that, they say they like it. And they feel like they like it. And they believe they like it. And I get it, because when I was doing all this craziness, and when I was restricting and I was hungry, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I was so powerful and in control, right? I'm like all powerful and in control. And I got my hunger going on. But the only reason that we feel good about hunger is because we have a story that we've connected to it. And that story is that I am a better person because I am under eating, I am losing weight. And if I lose weight, then I'm going to be really happy and I'm going to get that perfect guy and the perfect job and the perfect clothes. And I will finally be happy. It's a pretty big story and it's connected to hunger. And so a lot of times we actually experience the discomfort of hunger as something that's actually quite comfortable and powerful and in control. But I have to ask you, when you're feeling that way, like that, are you really happy? Or is it more just a sense of power and control? For some people, it's one of the few ways they actually feel powerful and in control. So there's a lot going on with the hunger, absolutely, that we could talk about. But I want to focus still on what happens with our needs, because if we've undereaten food, we're going to get these symptoms are going to increase, right? We're going to be thinking more and more about food until we finally eat, and then more than the normal amount is going to be needed before we can get back to homeostasis. That is called a binge, right? We have a name for it. It's called a binge. Now, sometimes binges really are truly overages, like truly, like I've eaten plenty today and now I'm just doing an overage. Truly could be emotional, okay? But until you've figured it all out and you know whether or not you actually were in some level of state of deprivation and that you were underage, and then boom, the overage and the binge, and then we beat ourselves up and we're mad and we go to therapy and we try to fix this binge. But really, the way to fix it is to deal with the underage, is to no longer do the underage. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, well, if this is the case, like what's going to happen to my weight? Okay, because this is kind of a scary thought here. The good news is when you begin to understand what is actually going on, the dynamics of what is going on, that you are not weak-willed, that you're not to blame, you are going to be better able to manage your eating and your weight all the way around. It's like you're seeing it straight on for what it really is. Because if you're thinking this right here is emotional and you're going to therapy and you are working on your emotions, I mean, that's probably a great thing, but that's not going to fix the eating. What's going to fix the eating is to get rid of this. Okay. The more you get rid of this, especially the continuous restricting, the more this will calm down and you won't have it. And then you won't be having to worry about weight gain. And I don't know about you guys, but if you can eliminate weight gain, wouldn't that be half the battle? Right. It is half the battle, eliminating the weight gain. That's what this is all about. You got to eliminate this so you can eliminate the weight gain. Okay. And so the takeaway today, what's really important is to understand that when we are in a state of deprivation from any of these needs that need to be met on a daily basis, we're going to be thinking about that need, thinking about food. We're going to find it hard to concentrate on other things in our lives because we're like our mind keeps getting hijacked to that thing that's not being met. We'll have a powerful craving. In the food world, it's called hunger. Okay, we'll have hunger, we'll have a powerful craving, preoccupation with food. The craving is uncomfortable, and when the need is finally met, more than a normal amount is needed to get us back to homeostasis. Okay, so important to quit beating yourself up for what is really just a biological consequence of the eating styles that are so often recommended in our culture. And so, as you know by now, I love to point out what is broken because when I work with clients, when I dig in there to find out what is broken, I need to fix those broken parts before we have a fighting chance of making the changes so that we can prevent weight gain and get a person back to where they want to be with their eating and weight at a status quo and a state of homeostasis and a place that they can be comfortable and live in. So we're going to keep doing more of that in this course. So the next module actually has a handout that covers all of this. I'd like for you to take a look at it and review it at times so that you can remember what it is about your eating that might be troubling and that it's not your fault. See you in the next one.